It's daybreak here on Arise News. It's time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. We begin with this day newspaper, our sister publication. It says, Tinubu-Osinbajo says he has no son grown enough to declare for president. Some writers to this story have insight to complete what APC has started, Vice President declares. Meanwhile, APC governors say we appreciate the development. Bagudu says APC may opt for consensus candidates for presidency. The leading photo on this day this morning is from a clip from the video of Vice President Osinbajo declaring for presidency and telling us why he wants to be president. Above that, marginal fields upstream commission targets June for drilling. Some writers blames difficult model adopted by DPR for slow progress. Above the nameplate of this day this morning, Lalong attending political meetings as terrorists smile down 80, abduct 70 in Plateau communities.
The Guardian newspaper, showdown in Southwest as Osinbajo, Tinubu APC ticket. Tinubu disowns Osinbajo, says, I have no son grown enough for the presidency. Suspected assassins kill APC chairman in Osun State. The MTN gets final license to operate payment service bank, and the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra insists April 27 ban on open grazing and beef sacrosanct. Bandits kill 78 in Plateau communities.
Well, let's look at Punch. The Osinbajo declaration is still raising so much dust. 2023 Tinubu-Osinbajo groups clash. Arabweshala may back VP. Free riders there. Vice President lost his polling booth. We're not aware of his political relevance. That is Lagos APC speaking. Presidential race not about big name but capability. Osinbajo grassroots organization, they are saying that. I have no son grown enough to challenge me, says Tinubu. VP close to us. Arabweshala's faction. Interesting developments here. Look at just the masthead. Over 5,000 debtors owe 10 federal government agencies 4.67 trillion naira. This is coming from the finance minister. You can get that on page 9. The list story, you can get it on page 2. And then the picture you're seeing there on that front page, Ogun Customs sees 102 million marijuana NDLEA 6 help. Whatever kind of help that is, if you read it on page 9, you'll get to find out what. That's for the Punch.
The Nation's newspaper says Tinubu rallies governors in mission for the APC ticket. And that's a photo of Tinubu and some APC governors yesterday. NWC gears up for primaries guidelines while Osinbajo unfolds plan. More headlines on the Nation's newspaper. 68 kidnapped train victims in Niger terrorist camp. We trekked for 5 days inside forests while doctors treated the injured. Above the nameplate of the Nation's newspaper, mass burial for 80 Plateau residents killed by bandits. And Nigeria gets 3 million doses of J&J vaccine from Italy.
The foreign papers now. Let's look at the Times. Summer of travel chaos warning for passengers. British missile takes down Russian drone.
All right. That's the Times, but this is Financial Times. Ukraine appeals for financial aid to survive wounds of Russia's war. It has about 3 riders there. Trade and industry collapse. Fiscal gap heads towards $7 billion a month. Call for reparations.
And the Guardian UK says Sunak, an out-of-touch hypocrite over tax avoidance. This is by Starmer as the Labour leader questions ability of super wealthy MPs to relate to the public. More headlines here, and a photo of Ukrainian troops pictured in Donbass. Zelensky's troops dig in as Russia loots Ukraine.
The Daily Telegraph is leading with a story about the NHS. GPS told to work late to avoid A&E chaos.
All right, just to the Independent before we bring in Emmanuel. Independent You have guilty as his fanatic who said murdered MP Ames was one of the least. Okay. Hospitals drop COVID tests to ease bed crisis. Overstretched hospitals are stopping routine COVID tests as pressures mount on staff. The Independent understands 2 major hospitals have stopped testing patients without symptoms to ease demand on beds. All right, we'll take one more paper before Emmanuel comes.
Take a look at the I newspaper. Revealed Putin's plan to resettle Ukrainians. There's an exclusive from the I newspaper. It says Vladimir Putin is sending thousands of Ukrainians to remote corners of Russia, up to 5,000 miles from their homes, according to Kremlin documents seen by the I newspaper. And for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us from our offsite studio. Emmanuel, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let's take a look at this day newspaper, and really the same headline across the national dailies. This morning, it says Tinubu disowns Osinbajo, says he has no son grown enough to declare for president. This comes as the vice president made his declaration, much expected, yesterday. And I like how the Guardian coined it: showdown in Southwest as Osinbajo and Tinubu eye APC ticket. I know yesterday when we spoke about that, after watching the video, we were curious about how everyone would respond to it. Other APC presidential aspirants, PDP aspirants, and just the citizens in general. But I want your take on this particular angle of the relationship between Osinbajo and Tinubu.
Good morning, Nkechi. Yes, we were curious about how everyone was going to respond, but I think nobody actually saw this coming. And of course, there's been talk again and again on that curious relationship between Osinbajo and his political godfather. A lot of people have actually, even from the start, even way back before any kind of declaration, everybody has actually wondered what it will look like someday if the VP say he wants to be president. I mean, this is like going way back, and also people wonder how Tinubu was going to react. So this kind of reaction, though it's typical Tinubu to react this way, it still took everybody unawares. He said he has no son that is grown enough to be president. I'm sure there will be all sorts of interpretations around it. The idea of him actually fathering someone like Osinbajo is also a bit curious. He's not his father, his biological father at least, and he might be his benefactor. He has propped him in life. Osinbajo was one time his commissioner in Lagos State, and then of course from details, he helped him into becoming vice president. But all that doesn't make the vice president qualify as a son, unless if he means a political godson or whatever that means. But a lot of people will say, look, the vice president is a man on, he's on his own. He's come of age. He's been in the corridors of power. He's had a front row, sitting right there and watching how the presidency works. A position even that his godfather, the Tinubu, has now actually held as vice president, as the number 2 citizen of this country. So to really demean such a person with that kind of comment and say it's his son, a lot of people will raise eyebrow. Already it's reverberating in the Southwest with both sides, conflicting and having crisis around those issues. So it's there are people that will say it's demeaning, but then again, some people will say this is Tinubu's pick. This is, the kind of person that Tinubu is. He will come up, he will say those things. It's a sound bite that will resonate with his base, re-energize them, make them stronger, and actually fend off this huge kind of, push from the Osinbajo's group. So, but in the way we're reporting it too, we're looking at how the dangers and the crisis around this kind of thing with our paper these days saying Tinubu has disowned his son. Another one saying that it's a showdown imminent. So the stage is set for that back and forth. Henceforth, it's just going to be a drip until we begin to see the crisis blow into a full stage of this development. And there are many angles to this issue still to be explored.
Indeed, Emmanuel. While those angles are getting set and cooking, Saraki in the PDP rather is saying, that's the former Senate president. He's saying a PDP consensus candidate will oust the APC from power. For those who want to read that story, it's on page 35 of this day. Do they have a chance, Emmanuel?
I think they do, because, I mean, especially now that they are talking about consensus, because that's what is threatening the PDP as it is. And Saraki is talking to that. He's looking at the crisis of zoning and all the issue that the PDP keeps raising. Those who favor a northern candidate, the southern governors who are saying, look, no, it's a turn of the south. Those are the kind of rhetoric you get from the PDP. Speaking of consensus, back to that story, Bagudu, an APC governor, is also thinking of a consensus candidate. So it's an epic kind of Titanic situation, warfare that we see coming ahead of us. The PDP is working towards getting a consensus candidate, and the APC too is thinking of actually clustering around someone. So the day will be battle royal, a royal rumble if you're a fan of wrestling, and to look at how a consensus candidate of the APC is going to square off with the consensus candidate of the PDP. So both sides are talking consensus, the idea of getting us credible people that will run this country, but a lot of people saying that you don't need big names, you need people that can solve problems, people that have big ideas, people that can solve the crisis we have. And yesterday I was talking to some people, and they say at this point it appears many of these candidates are actually really, really qualified to do a better job than the person we have there right now. And so, but Nigerians will have to make that ultimate decision on who should get us out of the quagmire.
Still on the Tinubu vice president, I don't know what to say, imbroglio. Now, the comment in some quarters is that, does he have the foot soldiers? Does he have the structure? Is he a political leader in the mold of political leaders in the country? He talked about the Southwest. Arabashala, who is being remote to support him, lost to Oyetola in the Southwest in the recently concluded election. Where does this put the vice president, even when you come to the primaries with the governors and the rest of the APC people?
And speaking of the governors, he had 12 governors in that iftar, in that, the breaking of fast that he had at the villa. And then, of course, those same 12 governors, practically almost all of them, the very next day, 24 hours later, were with his godfather, Tinubu. So almost like, toe-to-toe, eye-to-eye, head-to-head, kind of evening up, almost like equal strength. But you're right, talking about those connections, the political base, the foot soldiers, the spread, the acceptability, and even the muscle, the financial muscle, and the capacity to run this thing. There are a lot of people who say that Tinubu has an edge. 8 years in the corridors of power probably gave Osinbajo a lot of experience, and his professorial background, his church base, his background too in the church, the Redeemed Church, has given him a lot of leverage. But then when you talk about spread, you talk about political machinery, you talk even the wiliness of politics, what politicians do. So a lot of people think that Osinbajo doesn't seem to even up at least with his boss, being a benefactor of Tinubu. But if you're talking about acceptability, you saw a class act yesterday in his presentation. It wasn't the same kind of thing that you see happening at Eagle Square with all the fanfare. It was him talking directly to the people, talking about what he can do, talking about his credentials. This, a lot of people say, is his biggest game plan, the ability to reach out individually and talk about himself as an individual, what he can do, what he's done, and the change, a different kind of political person, different from the big name and the big boys and the big people that you have on the corridor, saying that, look, I'm a fresh breath in the whole in the whole scenario. I come with a lot of humility. He started with that word. He said he humbly presents himself. There are people actually connecting, and that is resonating with a section of the populace, saying that, look, this is a different kind of person and all that. But the gravitas and the capacity that the political class wills, in most cases, Osinbajo is not seen in that mold. He doesn't seem to have that kind of presence. Look at what Tinubu did yesterday, just coming out again with a show of strength with those same 12 governors, and talking about the fact that he hasn't got a son that is old enough to challenge him in the race. That is the way politicians talk. That is the kind of, but then Osinbajo is coming with a fresh kind of outlook and saying that, look, we can do this game differently. We can run this country with ideas and not just presence and not just being the big man in the room, but with humility. We're trying to touch the lives of individuals. So that's what he spoke so passionately about yesterday. That is resonating, I can assure you.
All right. We'll leave it there. Emmanuel Bello, thank you so much for your analysis.